Now, in our previous episode, we discussed what we do when there's a problem with the pleadings, and I referred you to Rule 23. Now, the next rule that we're going to discuss is Rule 30. Now, Rule 30 relates to an irregular procedure. It's got nothing to do with the contents of the pleadings. It's an irregular procedure. In other words, your opponent has done something which is not in line with the procedure that should be followed. In those circumstances, you would invoke Rule 30. Let me give you an example. Let's assume that you receive a notice of bar without giving you the required number of days within which to plead. That would be an irregular procedure. Or, for example, let's assume that somebody files a summary judgment application beyond the 15-day period permitted after filing a plea. That would be an irregular procedure. So Rule 30 relates to procedures, in other words, the timing of the events that are to take place in terms of the rules. Now, like with Rule 23, if somebody has taken a step, a procedural step, which is irregular, you still need to file a notice to remove cause of complaint. And in that notice, you need to specify exactly what the irregular step is. If they amend or they sort out the step complained of, then of course you're not going to approach court on application. But if they don't, you would then approach court on application to set aside the irregular step. Again, you need to show prejudice as far as that irregular step is concerned. Here's something important that you need to bear in mind. You cannot complain about an irregular step if you have already taken another step. So, for example, let's assume that somebody sets down a summary judgment application beyond the allotted 15 days. And you then take a step. In other words, you oppose it. You can't then complain about it being an irregular step because you've lost your opportunity. So you need to complain about the irregular step before you take another step. Otherwise, you've lost your opportunity. So to recap, Rule 30 relates to irregular proceedings, a step that is taken which is not when it should be taken within the allotted time or not appropriate. It's been such a pleasure to share this pause with you today. Remember, your voice matters. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell for the next tea adjournment.